Tell us about your experience with homeopathy. Like, what comes to mind? What's been some of the biggest things you've seen, or how has that experience been for you?
Well, the fact that I stopped having daily migraines, the fact that just even just overall the quality of my life improved, even not physical ailments, but the way in which I view things that might be upsetting or stressful. Some of those things that are maybe more emotional or psychological, that things that used to really bother me or cause a lot of worry and anxiety and maybe even anger, those kinds of things now, I just sort of notice I'm like, okay, well, that's all right. So being able to just let some of that go as opposed to dwelling on it and rehashing it and reliving it and
Going back to the migraines, how frequently were you having them?
well, I would say for the most part, if they weren't every day, then they were perhaps 5 days out of 7. So they were very frequent.
Okay. So right now, when is the last time? Like right now is July 10th. When was the last time you did have a migraine headache?
It was in February. I would say maybe, if not the middle, then maybe the 3rd week in February, something like that.
Okay, and then none since then?
No,
right now?
none since.
Okay. There was also mention about the quality of perhaps nails or hair or things like that. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. Fingernails were peeling, splitting, breaking, and even more painfully, they would break on the sides, like below the quick. So it would be, quite uncomfortable.
Sure.
And there, I would say, a lot of hair loss.
Okay.
A lot of shedding.
How much of that is happening right now?
Very little.
Okay.
Surprisingly little of the shedding of the hair.
Okay. Is there an issue with like not feeling hunger or hunger pains?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
So it's hard for some people who know what it is to feel hungry 3 times a day. I think it's hard to understand for somebody who doesn't feel that. But it's very easy, not so much now, but when I first started coming, it was very easy for me to skip a meal or to go the bulk of the day and not eat because I just didn't get hungry. And then, of course, I had to deal with the ramifications of that later. Being like so hungry you just can't stop eating or you're overeating at that point. Sure. So now I would say that while I don't always get a hunger pain, I am aware of a significant drop in my energy or a lot of yawning, and then I'm like, oh, that's right, I need to eat.
I see.
So now there are maybe not the hunger pains 3 times a day, but I'm more aware of my body's loss of energy or of having, like I say, feeling sleepy like all of a sudden.
I see. Okay. How about some of the aches in joints that you had reported, like in knee and hips and stuff like that? Tell us about that. Was homeopathy able to help with that? What's happened with that?
I would say most definitely, because I think that when I first came to see you, that the pains in the hips and the knees were almost like becoming routine. I mean, that just seemed to be the standard or the norm anymore. And I think I began to feel like, well, I'm getting older. Maybe that's just, what's going to happen. And that's not the case. So I would say now almost never, or if I do something, overdo something or do something wrong, then I might notice a pain in either my knees or my hips. But I would say almost none at this point.
Did your tinnitus, which was particularly in left ear, was that helped with homeopathy at all? Not helped? Can you tell us about that?
It was helped. It's not gone completely, but it's either so minimal that sometimes I don't even notice it, or it's just very infrequent.
Okay.
I don't know if I ever mentioned it to you in the beginning because I felt kind of embarrassed about it, but a couple times it got so loud and so obnoxious, it just made me want to, pound on my ear to like quit, just stop doing that. It's just so, just driving me to distraction that I couldn't even think about doing anything else.
I see.
So I haven't had anything like that, and I can't remember when.
I see. Excellent.
So it's definitely improved.
Okay. How about sleep? Did homeopathy have any effect on your sleep? Were there any sleep issues before, like maybe waking or not, either exhausted or waking multiple times? And was homeopathy able to help?
Well, the sleep has been problematic at the beginning when I first came to see you. I was waking, oh my gosh, 5 times a night. Often I would wake up and I couldn't go back to sleep. And then, of course, I would wake up in the morning finally and I would just be exhausted like I hadn't slept at all. So that has greatly improved. I would say now it's maybe 2 or 3 times a night, and rarely can I not go back to sleep. Almost always and now sometimes I'll even wake up and I'll think, oh, I don't really feel like getting up, and I'll just roll over and I'll go back to sleep. So,
I see.
It is much improved.
Okay, great. Another thing that was reported was like at times maybe getting bloody nose.
Oh, I had forgotten. Yes, that I haven't had any problem with that whatsoever.
So tell me about that. What was it like before, and what happened?
Before it was very much. It would just sort of happen, and there wouldn't be any warning signs or anything, and it seemed to go almost like a cycle of you'd have it a lot, and then you'd finally get over it, and you could not have it, and then all of a sudden it would start up again. And in times past, I would associate that with, really bad allergies or just the dryness in the air. But then it's been such a very long time since I've even had any problem whatsoever with that. And I know even now the weather, my nose will get dry or whatever, but no problems. I have noticed some improvement in some lingering skin issues. I don't really know what to call them, but I've had for some reason it seems to center around the sides of the eye. Either like I don't know if I know what to call them, but sort of either a discoloration or a raised kind of rough area. And almost all of that, if it's not gone, it's greatly diminished.
I see.
And so that's been a long time. I mean, I've had that for so long, I just sort of assumed it was just like normal and don't even give it any consideration. And one of those darker spots, years ago, I had some kind of treatment done at a dermatologist's office, some kind of freezing or whatever, which had absolutely no impact. And I would say with the homeopathy that has had much better results.